Hi, guys.
Hi
So,
everyone, happy Friday.
by the way, if Jack or Tom or John or Kurt are watching, please stop texting me right now. We're doing a live stream. You guys have been going off. Um, we have a good show
Turn your
today.
notifications
This
off.
is more of like an informal one, no guests or anything, but there's some issues we wanted to talk about. So, first off, my suspension. So, if you didn't know I was suspended from Twitter this week, I'm back now. This was one of the weirdest suspensions I've ever seen. I was suspended for objective facts. There was nothing about it that was controversial. I was even told by a source at Twitter that they were shocked by the suspension. They didn't understand what was going on. But basically, the math was, if I wanted to actually appeal and wait this whole thing out for them to admit they're wrong, it was going to take weeks. And they use the virus as an excuse for why they're backlogged and it would take so long. So what's interesting about it is they did that suspension where it affected my ability to tweet during the big tech hearings and our ability to do the show during those big tech hearings on that day. We had, I don't think by any coincidence, a whistleblower from a social media company that was going to be coming on our show that day after the hearings to discuss some major issues and to continue to blow the whistle on some stuff that they experienced and had documents for, and they've actually contributed now to a criminal referral. So I don't think it was a coincidence that I was suspended. I say we because I feel like they suspended our ability to do the show, and therefore you guys too, your ability to disseminate the information to other people. So I'm back now, but I don't think that was a coincidence. So we will reschedule that episode, and I'll still get that out to everybody. So in that respect, I guess not effective. But I also think it was no coincidence they did this after Elon Musk and the president both amplified me on the same day. I think that was another reason for this. And if you go back and you look, I'm going to keep this short. The last thing I'll say about it. If you go back and look right before they suspended me, I had noticed I was getting messages from all over. I'd say I had hundreds of messages this week of people saying, I followed you. And all of a sudden, my account doesn't follow you anymore. And I logged all those, got them, and I tweeted about it. And I said, why is Twitter doing this? Is it, something they're afraid of? And a bunch more people responded saying same thing happened to them because people were retweeting it to their followers. And their followers saw, hey, I used to follow him and now I don't. So really weird stuff going on there. And I guess all I can really say about it is this is going to get worse. So if you're under any sort of illusion that these social media companies are going to play fair going into November, they're not. Don't be surprised if I get banned at some point. I've done nothing ban worthy. I've said nothing crazy, but I wouldn't be surprised if they try to ban me. Because really, people who break the narrative that they would like to exist are dangerous, and that's not an egotistical thing to say. This is like, I know that I break the stereotype for them. I'm a Hollywood director that's directed huge celebrities. I'm Latino, and I'm unashamedly Republican and fighting for conservative values. So, that's something that is not helpful to them, and anybody like that, there's a real, I guess, there's an incentive to silence. So we'll move on to some of the issues. I'd say one of the first things I wanted to bring up, the Fauci's in a hearing today, and Jim Jordan asked him about the BLM protests. So BLM and Antifa protests, I use the word protests in quotes, and specifically mentioned the violence and mentioned that we just had two men arrested for trying to open a gym that they own. And he made the point, and it's a great point, that look, had these men that were just arrested for trying to open their business, had they been outside of their business with all of the people who go to their gym and they were protesting, they would not have been arrested. But they were arrested because they're trying to run their business and bring it back. So he asked Dr. Fauci, can you give your opinion on this? Do we need to limit protesting, limit these riots, limit these violent, events where all these people are getting together because it's increasing transmission of COVID? And for the first time ever, Dr. Fauci doesn't want to give his opinion. His exact words, I think you have the video. Will you pull it up? We're going to play the video for you guys, what he said. And it's just incredible. For the first time ever, he couldn't even do it with a straight face, which is my favorite part. So we're actually, we're going to play the actual video for you guys, okay? This is the low tech show today. So
I don't know how many times I can answer that. I'm not going to opine on limiting anything. I don't know how many times I can answer that. I'm not going to opine on limiting anything.
okay, so if you couldn't see, he couldn't even get through it with a straight face. He was literally like on the verge of bursting out giggling while saying this. I'm not going to opine on limiting anything. This man has opined on limiting everything. Okay? Is there a person more singularly responsible for this sort of culture of fear in America right now? I don't think there is. I think he's one of the most responsible parties for that. You look at what he just said yesterday. He just said, oh, one of the great things we're learning from this is about, basically the efficacy of masks, and that, this could help protect against flu in the future too. He's setting things up for a future where we always wear masks, okay? And that's something we'll get into on a different show. But this is not, how can anybody take him seriously?
He just said that yesterday. Right?
Yeah, he just
about,
said it.
About how effective they are for flu season. So this is something I've been saying since the very first day that this came up.
Yep, you did. And I told you
and
were
I
wrong.
said, yes, you did.
And you were right.
And we've been going back and forth on this for months now. But, I said, these masks are never coming off, Robby. And he's like, oh, you're just being, dramatic or whatever. And I said, okay, watch.
Yeah,
I said,
I have to admit she was right.
Wait till flu season happens, and they're going to make an announcement. And so I had to give him a real.
But hey, that's good leadership, right? I admit I'm wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was wrong about that.
You've seen somebody, an influencer or
admit that they're wrong. I was wrong about that. I guess I just have too much belief in people that we will not go along with this insanity, and I think that's where deep down I'm like, okay, these people aren't dumb enough to try to do this forever, because people won't allow it, right? But there's too many people who are allowing it. And I think that's where we get into a dangerous area. This brings up an
interesting point, because they were making an example out of Don Jr., but out of Carpe Diem, out of all of these, conservative voices and influencers that have not said anything like
crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing crazy.
They're not putting out any dangerous, wild conspiracy theories or anything like that. Just stating facts from real doctors, real scientists, real research. And we're in a really dangerous place if you can't ask questions, and if you can't put out real studies, real doctors' opinions.
That's
in
real
a very
science
dangerous
denial.
place. So what happens is, when you are made an example of, when you take the public, spanking in front of everybody, the fear sets in. Oh, I better not retweet that now because I might get banned. I built up my platform all this time. If I do that, I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to lose my drafts. I'm going to lose everything that I've invested into this platform. So take some moments to think about that, because it will be you next, eventually. We're on that trajectory. If they're going to ban people for reposting or asking a question from a doctor who's coming out, with an expert opinion,
well, it's not like. By the way, what I was suspended for was not about that lady. The lady doctor that everybody's like alien DNA and sperm and all that stuff. Okay, it wasn't about her. It was about a Yale epidemiologist who is a doctor and a professor at Yale, who is backing the drug that shall not be named, because apparently it's Voldemort now, and you're not allowed to say even the name of the drug. So it's just an objective fact. I just said his name, what he's touting, and I linked to a Fox article. That's it. That's all I did. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I do want to make a point about that female doctor. I forget her name right now. But the doctor, she was a part of the Frontline Doctors press conference. And by the way, everybody's kind of forgetting that there were dozens of other doctors involved in that. They're making it all about her and some comments she made in the past. But I do want to make a point about something. Aren't the Democrats the ones always telling us you shouldn't be judgmental of other cultures, and that you should try to be more open-minded about other cultures and not, treat them like they're crazy in any way? And they're the ones going after this lady who has some cultural beliefs from the African country she's from that they're now saying should discredit her ability as a doctor, because she believes in these things that are culturally pretty common where she comes from. I just find that interesting, that suddenly that fight for diversity and love of other cultures disappears when it's not convenient anymore. I think it's interesting. It's something people should ask themselves about. Yeah, Dr. Stella Emanuel. I think that's interesting. That, you know, once it was no longer convenient for us to be multicultural, and they could use that as something to poke fun at, they did. The minute they could do that to an African woman, they did it. So, you know, people should just keep that in the back of their mind. You know, are they really open and accepting to other cultures, or is it just more virtue signaling? And I would argue it's just more virtue signaling.
Let's talk about the new Twitter policy.
Oh, yeah. Well, one of the new Twitter policies is that what you do offline can get you banned as well. So if it has the potential for offline harm, or you're doing something offline that can sort of get back to them in some way.
Oh,
which
you
really,
mean like protesting and breaking windows and destroying businesses?
No, that doesn't count.
Okay.
That doesn't count. In fact, direct from Twitter's comms department, they are not doing anything about anybody who's breaking property, because they don't consider that, or even coordinating to break property.
What about screaming outside of children's windows that the big bad wolf is coming to?
Not a problem. Okay. That's fine.
Right.
So it's really just, you have to be, well, what's their voter registration?
Democrat.
Then not a problem.
Okay.
But if it was the opposite, then it would be a problem.
Got it.
So that's how it works. But, you know, what I would jump into too, this is a big thing. You know, these other Epstein documents came out in the Maxwell case, and they explicitly named Bill Clinton. Okay. This is something I tweeted about this morning. These people who are called conspiracy theorists, myself included, who said, look, Bill Clinton went to Epstein Island. He was on the flight logs. He did all this. The media made fun of everybody who did. I mean, they ripped us apart and called us conspiracy theorists and nuts, because we were able to just do some investigative journalism that they're not willing or capable or care to do. And I think that has more to do with their political bias than it does with their ability to do investigative journalism, because these people aren't dumb. They're not dumb. They can do this. They know what's going on. They just ignore it because it's not something that works with their political ideology. They'll throw Bill Clinton under the bus once they're good and ready to. And they will do it with no problem. I mean, they'll run back over him sideways.
He'll be the sacrificial lamb for the collective.
But it's about timing.
Because he has no influence anyway. He's
it's
just
about
playing
timing
golf,
for them.
You know,
that's all
somewhere.
it is.
So it's not a big deal.
It's just about timing. And, you know, I'd say the one positive from that is that I would think that some people will get the message that, oh, I will one day no longer be useful to the people who are, you know, orchestrating all this. And that may be me. But I'm glad to see that his name is finally coming out in official documents in this court case. There's other documents, but the media has pretty much ignored them in the past. So, you know, I want to make a point from this, though. In these documents that came out, it made very clear they asked one of the victims about a photo of her and Prince Andrew. And she said within this, and it came out within this, the FBI's had that photo since 2011. They knew what was going on. James Comey knew what was going on.
Cindy McCain released a statement. Yeah. We all have known this has been going on for years.
And they did nothing.
The Project Veritas expose on the ABC reporter.
Yep.
She came out saying I had this story. I mean, people have known.
And ABC held it. They held that story in-house. So people really need to start disseminating this information in digestible ways. And what I mean by that is, don't throw the whole package at people, okay? Give them these bits of information that are indisputable. Okay. Number one, now we have these documents, Bill Clinton at the island, places him there in a victim's account. Okay. Number two, the FBI had these photos at least since 2011. The Obama administration knew about it. Comey knew about it. And Cindy McCain says that they all knew about it. You know, these are indisputable facts. These are things that you can't get around them anymore. So give them those, and give them the clip of the lady from ABC. She had the story for years, including naming Bill Clinton again, and ABC held that in-house.
So what happens, though, because that's what this is about, is if you put those facts out that we finally gathered all of this information and got organized and we have it. Now when you put facts out, you are at risk of being banned, being deplatformed, unpersoned. I mean, that's what we're dealing with now, because they didn't think we would get to this point where we would uncover all of this truth, that there would be whistleblowers, that there would be people embedded in these dirty operations that would eventually help bring the truth to light. But now we have people that are being brave and outspoken and using their platforms and putting their businesses, their lives, their safety at risk, and are speaking this truth. What happens to them now? We have to make examples of them, right? We have to deplatform them. We have to let everybody else know that you have to live in fear. Think twice before retweeting. Think twice before posting something with that person to ostracize them, to alienate them, to discredit them, to call them a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
Things like that. I mean, this is the same tactics that they've
100%.
used for every socialist country, every communist country, dictatorship in history. It's the same tactics.
By the way, another issue that we're going to go into today is this mail-in voting issue. Okay, so does anybody remember the primary election that happened in Wisconsin when Bernie was running against Biden still during the primary, and the Democrats said, "Oh, we need to move the election. We need to move the election. It's not safe." Now suddenly Trump's saying anything about, hey, maybe we need to, if you guys are going to demand we have to do mail-in everywhere and there's all these issues, maybe we need to move it. Suddenly it's like, oh no, he's a fascist. Well, you guys were all saying we should move one just recently because, it wasn't politically expedient or convenient for you. The reality is, if you're out there saying people can protest, people are able to do this, that, and the other, and they can go to Costco, they can go to Walmart, they can go all over the place. You can go once with a mask on and go vote, okay, under their ideology. That shouldn't be an issue. But beyond that, let's just pretend because there is going to be a mail-in ballot problem in the election period. If the election happens this year, there will be the most mail-in ballots there have ever been, and it will become a major problem. If you haven't seen the expose yet, there was an expose done recently, and we're actually, you know what? I just decided I'm going to do it myself too. I'm going to mail out 100 pretend ballots to my own P.O. box, and I'm going to see how many show up. But the news channel in Philadelphia just did this, and 3% of the ballots that they sent out to themselves are missing. Okay, that's 3% of the American vote. That is not a small amount. That is a huge amount of votes. Okay, especially if that mysteriously happens from a district that is predominantly Republican. Okay, if that starts happening in these places, you're talking about something that could take months, if not a year, to unwind and figure out where all the missing votes are, where they came from. Do they line up with old numbers? Do they make sense? Do they not make sense? You could be talking about an election that is contested for a very, very long time. Okay. And that's no small thing. That's destructive to our democracy. By the way, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and ask. We will look in the comments. And it doesn't matter if you're on YouTube or Periscope, we can see all the comments in our feed. So go ahead and shout them in, and at the end we'll answer questions. But on this mail-in ballot issue, you really just again, the left is trying to convince people not to think logically. Just think logically about your own mail, okay? How many times have you had issues with the Postal Service? I've had a lot. Mm-hmm. I've had bills go missing. I've had credit cards that were sent to me for me to get my new card go missing. I've had checks go missing. As a business owner, I can tell you this, we mail out checks to thousands of people, okay? And I can tell you, every time, every check run, every single time there's a major check run, there's at least a couple people who don't get their check, who we have to go back, figure out what happened, and get them their check, or get them a wire, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Okay? These things happen. The mail system is not this just flawless machine. There's been a lot of issues at the Postal Service. A secondary issue is that the Postal Service has been very politically inclined towards the Democrats, okay? They actually give time off for postal workers to go and do political work. So, and that they predominantly go do this in the last election for Hillary Clinton. They predominantly did it for her. Mm-hmm. So this is an issue you also have to think about, is these are not unbiased parties. And as much as I would like to say, okay, everybody's just a good person and nobody's going to do anything to screw around, all it takes to flip elections is a couple of really nasty, bad people who are willing to do some nasty, bad stuff. And to be honest, that's not just a Democrat problem. That is something that can and has happened on both sides. The question is, who is more motivated to do that going in 2020? And I would 100% argue that that's the Democrats, and that they have, sort of a stranglehold on the institutions that are the most able to intervene and do dangerous things.
Right.
You
well,
know?
behaviorally too. If you
Yeah.
look at who are the people willing to commit acts of violence, and justifying it for political justice, who's willing to destroy businesses that people have, innocent civilians have built, their whole lives, to score political points, who's willing to, go after people's children, things like that. It's that same mindset, that same behavior that is willing to go do something like ballot harvesting.
Here's a little did you know is in California there's two did you knows. One is in California, ballot harvesting is illegal. Ballot harvesting is where I could go, we could both go together and we could go to an old folks home where they're all getting mail-in ballots in 2020, okay? And we could say, hey, you guys, I know it's hard to get all this together. It's hard to keep track of all the races. We'll help you fill this out. And we'll deliver it for you to make sure your vote counts, okay? You'd be shocked how many people say, oh yeah, great, awesome. And the Democrats have a great ground operation for this. This is how they won all of those Orange County seats, flipped them from Republican, which they had been for so long, to Democrat, okay? They had stunning ballot harvesting operations on the ground. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to admit it, but they did. Republicans had none because we're morally opposed to going and doing this. But you know what? In states where it's legal, like California, you have to do it. There's no way around it. So I really hope the Republicans there have wised up and are going to do what the Democrats are doing, because as long as it's legal there, they made it legal for a reason, because they thought it would benefit them. You have to fight back and you have to do it the right way. And it's really sad. We saw so many cases of people getting frauded out of their vote because of that ballot harvesting. It should not be legal. But until you're able to get that off the books, you have to be able to engage the same way they are.
Look at our past elections. I mean, we had thousands of dead people voting.
It's crazy. I mean, somebody just got a ballot for their dead cat. They did. That just happened in the news. Somebody got a ballot for their dead cat.
Really?
So, I mean, think about this, people. Think about it. Really think about it. And you know what? I would say, if I'm a betting man, I would say the election is going to happen on time, because it would turn into such a crazy issue. But we need to work hard to get votes out. We really do. This election is close. I would say, going into 2016, I don't know how long all of you have followed me, but if you followed me since the last election, I was confident Trump was winning, period. Very confident, knew he was winning. I said, I never had a doubt, ever. I said 100% he is winning this race. This election, this was never going to be easy. A lot of people got complacent because the economy was so good. Trump was doing so well. His polling numbers were so good. And they were only getting better. And then COVID happened. There's still a lot to untangle about how COVID got here, the creation. We still have a lot of questions that need to be answered about that lab in Wuhan. There's a lot of questions about why this happened, because China knew what they were doing. Why were they doing it? Who potentially knew about what they were doing? There's a lot of questions to be answered there. But, you can't discount that there was a lot of motivation or I guess a lot to be gained by this happening the way that it's happened. It has hurt its numbers, and we do need to work extra hard now to make sure that we win. And that's something I want to stress to people, is you can't be complacent anymore. You can't buy into the idea that all the polls are wrong. Polling does suck. And there is a major hidden Trump vote out there, just like there was last time. But you have to still redouble your efforts and not be complacent, because that is what will lose us the election, is if we're complacent.
What happens in sports when you're playing a dirty team? What does that mean? You have to play harder.
Yeah.
You have to compensate for that if they're going to be tripping and grabbing stuff.
Grabbing stuff.
I'm not great
to
with
self-censor. She doesn't have great sports
but,
analogies. She's been. I have to admit something. I love sports, so I had a hard time. I watched the Angels. It's very difficult, the whole protesting, and it's, thankfully we don't have a Nielsen box. If I had a Nielsen box, I wouldn't watch it, because I don't want to contribute to their ratings at all. I never expected baseball to do what they just did. It honestly was like stunning to me. And she's hardcore. She's like, cut it off. We're not watching it ever again. You know, which I love about her. I mean, she's so on fire.
Well,
all the time.
I will hold him accountable.
No,
know,
you
if
do.
If he ever becomes
You're
a
on fire.
politician, I have no desire whatsoever to become a politician. If he ever becomes one, I will hold him accountable.
Yep.
I will, make sure that he does what he says he's going to do.
Yeah.
And he might not be afraid of anyone else, but he is afraid of me. So.
Yep, that's actually that's really true. Is that what God blessed me with is the ability to I'm impermeable to any of this stuff. Like none of these people on the left, the media, any amount of stabbing from the media, any amount of like guilt tripping from leftists, none of it works on me. It just doesn't. The only thing that I would say has an effect is my wife, because I trust her judgment more than anybody's. So I'd say we're a package deal. I kind of feel like we're a package deal.
And I'm
That's
just,
probably dangerous
and
for me
I'm
to say
kidding.
that,
I don't like boss him around, and I'm
no,
not.
she
leaving
doesn't.
him.
I boss her around.
But
I'm just kidding.
But I do like hold him to his integrity, because I remind him who he is and what he stands for. Yeah. And I'll tell him, why are you tweeting about Major League Baseball if you're watching it? Like, don't tweet about it.
It's true.
Don't be a hypocrite.
It's
right?
true. And I love that about her, because it really, we need more, we need less hypocrisy in everything. Mm-hmm. People need to stand for things really clearly and forcefully. Something else, another did you know that I wanted to bring up. So when Epstein was previously charged and previously convicted, the deal that was put together for him was put together by Alan Dershowitz. And in that deal, mm-hmm. it gave immunity to all co-conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein without consulting any of the victims. Okay? It gave immunity, full immunity, to all co-conspirators without consulting the victims. That is not allowed. It is not legal. You have to consult with the victim in a case like this before you do something like that. Even more stunning is that Dershowitz is accused in these documents that came out. So theoretically, you're talking about a man negotiating his own immunity. It's just so stunning you can't even wrap your head around it. Mm-hmm. And the FBI, people in power, everybody knew. At the end of the day, you do have to wonder if Epstein was 100% an intelligence asset that was doing all this stuff, because it's either that or all of these people were complicit, because the fact that this was not handled so aggressively as a statement to protect our children, protect young people, protect the vulnerable, tells you that there is some really, really, really deeply disturbing things going on. And that's something that we have to grapple with as a nation. We can't ignore it. We can't just, say, well, there's two systems. There shouldn't be two systems. If we're operating as if there's two systems, this is not a country by the people for the people. And we need to be. We need to be working in the interests of the American people. So this is good that these documents came out, but it's not enough. One of the things I was pleased about that, could sort of loosely tie in here is that Barr went in front of the Congress and was questioned. I think he did an incredible job just tearing them apart. But one of the things he was asked was, will you promise not to release anything from the Durham investigation before the election? And Barr just was like, nope, not promising that. Nope. They need to drop all that stuff. That's something that will be really explosive if they do it the way that I believe it's going to be done. Everything I've heard from people that should know everything, it is going to be very, very explosive. That's the real thing. Before the IG report, if you remember back, a lot of people were hyping up the IG report. I told everybody, don't get too hyped about the IG report. The Durham investigation is where the real work is being done. The IG thing was always overhyped. There's good stuff in it, but it's really news fodder, because everybody knew they weren't going to go after McCabe. They weren't going to really seriously go after the people they should have gone after with that. But I think what's coming in the Durham investigation is a lot more serious, a lot more stunning, and will permeate the American psyche far more than the IG report did. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, just, maybe there's something else you mentioned, I think, wasn't it?
No, what I was gonna, Samantha
Some
commented,
questions?
what do you guys think about the new stimulus package? I think that it's time for children to go back to school. The American Academy of Pediatrics agrees. Parents agree. The teachers that don't want to go back or don't feel safe doing that, they should find other jobs. Kids are going to be sick, and it's not the right profession for somebody who has a compromised immune system that is going to be around children a lot. They're not the most cleanly people, but you can wear your mask. There's so many people that believe in the mask. Wear your mask to protect you if that's what you feel like you have to do. There's just no science to support that it's not safe for kids to go back. And we're not accounting for the dramatic rise in childhood psychological issues that are happening. Suicides,
CDC director said
depression,
suicides
anxiety.
are now outpacing COVID deaths.
Yes, I'm talking also about children though, and specifically when you look at masks in the classroom environment or in a developing child mind, we are wired to fear what we don't know, the unknown. So somebody wearing a mask, we're programmed to fear. And kids can't learn social cues. They can't learn social emotional learning when people's masks are covered. It makes it very uncomfortable, and it triggers like a stress response, even unconsciously.
Yeah.
So even if they know, oh, it's my teacher, I don't need to fear her. Even having the mask, it's uncomfortable. There's a disconnect there. And there's a stress response for kids. Just take a moment to remember being a kid and try to empathize with how that might be, and to not be allowed to go near your friends, to be scared of your friends, to see everybody as a vector of illness.
That culture of fear is so damaging.
It is so psychologically damaging. And we're already seeing that. And we're not even going, and experts are saying that we're not even going to really know all of those effects till these kids get a little bit older and we really see the damage that it did in these formative years of learning, these social cues that they're missing, that they're learning. It's really dangerous. And it's interesting because we're also changing social dynamics so rapidly, where people are now electing to do distant sessions, distant learning, distant everything over in person. It's now becoming a conditioned preference. And that's exactly how evolution works. So we have to be mindful of that, like psychological effects and emotional health, not just physical health. And realistically, they go, they tie in together.
So I want to answer that question too. Before I answer it, there's somebody else I want to get to. So Lala Logagash said, I hate Trump and hope he loses, but I enjoy listening to you guys. I'm curious about that. Could you explain why you like listening to us? If you vehemently do you vehemently disagree with our politics, or you just don't like Trump? I'm interested to know that.
Yeah, because there's actually a lot of conservatives that don't like Trump. But
like personality-wise,
the policies, and that's
so
a really important distinction to make, because there's these scapegoat figures.
But you can't do that and not vote for him, because if you believe in the policy, there's no way you can, in good conscience, hope Joe Biden wins. Mm-hmm. Period. There's that. I don't believe that there is. So I'm curious to know their actual position. But I do want to answer Samantha's question. Samantha 47173446. That's long, says, what do you guys think about the new stimulus package? I would say this. I am a people's Republican. I would say I'm a populist Republican. I put people first. I believe so deeply in capitalism. I believe that we can be more people-centric in every way with this stimulus package. And we can also believe in capitalism within this a little bit more. I don't think we're fully empowering businesses and people. I hope that answers your question. I think that we need to do more things to specifically lift people up and give them the opportunity to get back to work.
Right, but
and
we will not.
I don't think we're doing that. I think we're actually, with these packages, we're number one, contributing to government bloat for no reason, government waste for no reason. We're doing nothing but, filling. We're basically doing the checklist for all of the little pork things that each person wants in their area that serves them and serves their donors. And that's not what we should be concerned. We should be concerned right now about making sure people are not evicted, making sure that people are able to pay their bills through no fault of their own. Okay, this is not like the last recession where this was just an economic collapse. This is forced by the government. Forced. People need to remember this. It was forced by the government. We have not had that happen in modern times. The government needs to make it right. Not the pressure is not on the people to make this right. The government who did this needs to work together, get to work, and make it right. Period. They're the ones responsible for this. You have to fix it. People were doing what they were supposed to do. They listened. They did what they were supposed to do, and so many of them ended up screwed. And I hate getting that angry about it, but you really, I mean, it's hard not to get angry about it. It really is. We're in a good position, so it would be easy to just say, oh, well, what are my interests? But that's not the right thing to do. The right thing to do is to say, hey, on an overall scale, too many people got screwed here, and that we can't just let that be the outcome. We have to fight for everybody. And I think that the stimulus package as it currently stands does not do that. So that would be, I hope that's a good enough answer. If you want more specifics, let me know.
Well, I think it's also really important. Businesses have died. People have lost everything already. We will not survive if we keep, doing these shutdowns, intermittent shutdowns, whether we lift it and then go back. Businesses cannot survive like that. Either they have to decide. They have to decide if they're going to do their mask mandate, then everything has to stay open. Everything should stay open regardless. But, you can't, it is nonsensical to have these VIP funerals, and you can't have more than 10 people as a normal American to come to your grandma or your parents' funeral. You can't go to church. You can't sing. But you can go to protests and scream in somebody's face. You can go to somebody's home and rally together and be directly next to each other, not social distance. This is just nonsensical. And anybody that hasn't put that together, probably they're not going to connect any dots at this point. If you haven't put those things together and said something's not right. Here's the thing, guys. I understand how overwhelming it is, because it's a inundation of information, right? We have so much being thrown at us, and it's flooding the zone. It's a tactic to make us our heads spin, because with so much information, so much new stuff dropping. But what we have to remember is we have an innate intuition, and we have to consult that. That's the most threatening thing that they are afraid of, is that we just inside go, this is wrong. And we start speaking to that and stop focusing on manipulated data, science, and facts. I'm not saying ignore science, data, and facts. I'm saying to critically think and also consult your inner sense of truth of whether something's bullshit or not. Because this, when you meet people, somebody's being deceptive, somebody's lying, somebody's full of crap. This, and we just don't use it enough. And we've been taught and conditioned to not listen to our inner GPS, our inner guidance system. That's what directs us to truth. That's what leads us to truth. And it's just a sense that we are not using enough. So when that happens, that inundation of information, go inside and ask how you actually feel about that, because, thunder.
Got a little bit of thunder.
I forgot.
I'm writing down questions from people. So Lalo Degach asked, what about teachers who are in the risk category? Don't go too far because I'm writing these down.
Oh.
We've actually covered that. So I have a very simple go back to school plan. If your child has an elderly person at home, keep them home. If your child is immunocompromised, keep them home. Okay. And we'll offer full online schooling for them. that'll be even better in terms of class size than what we're doing now, encouraging everybody to do it. Okay.
Right.
Teachers over 65 and teachers who are immunocompromised, same thing. You guys will be able to teach online and do it from your home, and you'll be the ones doing the teaching for the kids who have to stay home too. Everybody else goes back to school. Period. That's how you mitigate risk. And at school, you have social distancing in place. In certain situations, you don't require mask use for things like PE. You don't require, I mean, I don't want to go too deep into the weeds on that, but in terms of people and how you separate them out by age and by condition, that's what the simple part of the plan is. And there was another, I want to ask you a question. What is someone with a cervix called?
A woman?
They're so simple. You didn't see this, did you? CNN ran a story saying people with a cervix instead of women. They literally referred to women as people with a cervix.
Did we not just have a conversation before this about, like, he was telling me, because I'm always saying we need to talk about this, this, and this. And he's always saying, oh, we're going to get banned. We're going to get banned no matter what. They could literally find anything. The fact that I just said a cervix belongs to women can get us banned. I mean, these people make up their own rules.
They're science
If
deniers.
you put out facts, if you put out science, or you link to a study, you know, it's the same thing. So they're going to do it whenever they do it.
Ooh.
Hello.
Looks like the storm might be messing with our feed, but
so the question that we should be asking ourselves is, what happens once we get banned? What happens once you get banned? Your neighbor gets banned. What is left? What kind of viewpoints and representation in society are left? It's social genocide, what's happening here. And we can't be afraid to speak truth. We have to know that there will be sacrifices that we have to make, and there will be unjust treatment. But it doesn't mean that we have to give into that fear, because if we do, then the truth will never get out. So we might have our voices silenced, but that's okay. The next person will stand up and do it. And if we don't do anything, then we didn't try. We didn't try at all.
So Lalo Degach, I appreciate your answer. Your answer to my question earlier about why you like us, but you hate Trump and all that. You said both I disagree with many of your politics and don't like Trump, but you guys seem like good people. I appreciate that. You know, you're a rare breed of, people. I'm assuming you're on the left. You're sort of rare in that regard because there's not many people who fit that description, where they're able to sort of be welcoming and stuff. Yeah, our lighting changed a lot. There's a big storm. So if we go out, that's why. And 85ers, I agree with you, she could definitely be that. You were correct. It's crazy how often it's the yeah.
We're having a gate issue.
Oh, is the gate stuck?
Yeah.
She may leave real quick and go help real quick. But I'll finish answering a couple of these. I really do appreciate your answer, Lalo Degach, though. That was, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that was a very thoughtful answer. Let's see here real quick. Let me get one of your other questions here. Somebody asked about using fingerprint as voter ID. I have concerns about that just from a sort of civil liberties standpoint. I don't think that we should have to give our fingerprints to the government in exchange for our right to vote. But I do believe in voter ID to keep our elections safe. So I think what we should be doing is free voter ID for everyone that is an American citizen, and that it should be universal, and that we should have a program where we go into areas giving it, areas that, people would say are disadvantaged or are at more of risk, which, by the way, I think is bigotry. I think it's racist that they even say this, but to just ask, sort of deal with that claim from the left, I would say just make sure it gets everywhere and eliminate any of those sort of ideas. But I do think we need it. I don't see any plausible argument against it that makes any sense why we would not have voter ID. I think that is just kind of one of those no-brainer things. Why can't Trump fix social media is a question from 85ers. So that's a good question. I have a couple ideas, and I've run some of them by the White House. I think that there's a great argument that you could even attach some of the stuff from the Telecommunications Act onto these social media companies, but the Section 230 makes it kind of difficult. Really, you need laws to deal with new things. Okay, and social media has never had legislators go after it because let's be really honest, most of the legislators are old people. They don't use social media. They have an intern who does it for them. So when you don't understand something and you fundamentally are able to just be manipulated about it, you're not going to have good things, good outcomes. We need people in Congress who understand technology. And I know that sounds like really obvious, but it's not to them. We need those. So as voters, that's what we can do better is elect people who understand the technology. In Republican primaries, look at your candidates, figure out are these people in touch with the modern issues that are going to be facing our communities? And if they're not in touch with it, try to find a candidate who is, because the stuff that's facing us is not going to be simple, and it's going to require people who are deeply, deeply understanding of what we're facing, especially from other countries. You look at China, technology is a huge part of China's plan to come after us. Oh, good, we got some wet dogs in here.
Oh my gosh, it is a big storm. Wow, really, really. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so if we go out, that's why. I'm writing down.
Rue, come here. Rue, come say hi. Put your face up here so they can see you.
They're not gonna
Can y'all see the Rue?
Rue, say hi.
See the puppies?
Let me see.
They're scared of the storm. It's a big one. Wow.
Going through your questions. My tweets on Epstein have been excellent. Thank you, Bubble Bath Girl. I appreciate that. It's worth saying that everybody who has been harping on Epstein and Clinton and everything, they've been called conspiracy theorists for so long. So I hope everybody takes a victory lap over that, because the real conspiracy theorists are the media who hid this from the American people for so long, and the politicians who hid it for so long, despite admitting that they all knew about this. So that's one of those things you have to question. What else? That's one of those things you have to question, what the real intent was and why they're protecting them. FCC does need to hold, a lot of things accountable, and that's another conversation, maybe for a whole episode.
Definitely. I mean, we have to address the issue that's happening. I mean, litigiously, we have to do that at some point. But
hi, Barry. Oh, Barry, by the way, if anybody sees Barry, she's probably my favorite Democrat. We've had some really good conversations, and she's able to identify that a person with a cervix is a woman. So that is a rarity among Democrats today. So thank you, Barry. I appreciate you.
Yep.
She's one of those people, if you engage Barry with good faith, she will engage with you in good faith. If you try to troll Barry, she will go back at you harder. So advanced warning, don't try to troll Barry, because she will.
Ooh, I mean, this is
nice and strong.
This is really an intense
She'll
storm.
go after you.
We're still on.
I am too. Let's see here.
Gosh.
So somebody asked, Eric Dundero asked if I was banned from Twitter. I was not banned. I was suspended. If I had been banned, it would have been a much different deal. They have no reason they're able to ban me. I mean, I've been very careful in that regard. I know everything deeply in terms of the terms of service. So, it would be hard to get that. It's not a challenge by any means, but let's see. Any idea why I keep getting reply deboosted? So, in terms of just the what they're doing on social media to censor conservatives, it is real. So if you're being deboosted or anything like that, this is happening across the board. You look at what they call it, rolling off followers. That's what Twitter's been doing to my account. I have people rolling off on a constant basis. I get DMs, and if this ever happens to you, DM me, because I collect it all on a thing for Twitter. At this point, I have thousands and thousands and thousands of people saying, hey, I followed you, and suddenly I'm no longer following you.
I don't even
Why
get the
is that?
alerts from my own husband.
Yeah, she doesn't get. She has alerts set for me, notifications. She doesn't get them. And then I have other people who say they have alerts for me, and they get 6 of them at once, and it like is irritating. It would irritate me. So there's a lot of weird games being played. Also, likes. A bunch of the people who follow me say my likes disappear off your things. These are not conspiracy things. These are objective realities. They happen. There's nothing we can really do about them. The president and legislators have to fight back. The one thing that makes me, hopeful and why it doesn't bother me is that I know we're breaking through. They wouldn't be doing this if we were not having an effect and we were not breaking through. The reality is we're not the Republicans of the past, and that's something that I think I'm embracing more and more is like we are the future of the Republican Party. We're deeply understanding of these technology issues. We're very pragmatic. We're very common sense driven. And I think that's really dangerous to the left. The more that we have these conversations from a place where we're about common sense and we're about being objective and looking at things from multiple different angles, the more dangerous you are. If you're sort of hardened into a position where, it can be twisted into an extreme, that's what's going to happen every time. But when you're able to have a pragmatic, common sense driven conversation that is about serving the people from a conservative point of view, it's very difficult for them to fight back. And you make too much sense. So that's why I think that they specifically target people like us and like you guys, because you guys are sort of the same thing. But in terms, somebody said almost like a new party. No, not really, because in terms of values, we have Republican values. It's like saying, is it a new party today versus when Lincoln was president? I would argue no, it's not. A lot of the same principles and everything apply. We do things differently. We have different threats we face. So, of course, there's different positions on new issues, new threats. And I would say it's sort of the same thing. You meet the times you live in. Yeah, you meet the times you live in. And the Republican Party of the past was not always culturally aware. We are. You look at, say, the period of time where they tried to censor music, like Dick Cheney and his wife were very on about the music. Republicans have become very, 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 very passionate about protecting free speech. That was not the case in the 90s. So you have to be very cognizant of the fact that there are certain things that have changed over time, and that's one of them. It's one of the things that I care a lot about is protecting people's free speech. I don't think we should be censoring people's voices. I think that everybody, especially on social media, this is the public square now. And people need the right to be able to speak. They need to be able to have the right to have a conversation. Need to have the right to be able to disagree with people. Because I want people on the left who are watching to think about this. Imagine we lived in a world where all the news that you were able to get was stuff from Breitbart or was stuff from, those frontline doctors the other day. Imagine that was all you were allowed to see on social media. Imagine that was all you were allowed to see in the news. Anything else was just immediately discredited, or accounts were banned or suspended for posting it. You would be very concerned about our future as a country when you're not allowed to have an opposing view without being banned. Right. Because what does it say when social media needs to ban a doctor or dozens of doctors actually it's hundreds of doctors at this point, giving a dissenting opinion about something based on their objective reality and their objective treatment plans that they've had? It tells you that they believe that they have the right to make better medical choices than doctors do. It tells you, though, further that they believe that their truth is the only truth.
Right.
And when you arrive at that point where someone's truth is the only truth, that's a very dangerous place, because truth is objective. Facts are not. Facts are facts are something that are objective. Truth is subjective. So, the truth about something, I can believe the truth about, the drug that shall not be named is one thing based on studies and anecdotal information from doctors and hospitals, like the 6 hospitals participated in the Henry Ford study. That can be my idea of what the truth is, okay? Somebody on the left could have a different idea of the truth based on, say, the discredited Lancet study that had to be retracted. which was a big reason why the FDA ended up, pulling their emergency use for the drug that shall not be named. These are things that people can have difference of opinion in terms of what the truth is. So the truth is not always just, black and white.
Right.
Facts tend to be black and white, so these are things that, around the edges, people just have kind of stepped off of being very honest about. And I think that's something we need to be honest about. Looking at what you guys are saying.
Well, it's really ironic is that, leftism hates religion, right? Marxism, the opium, refers to religion as the opium of the people. And what they're essentially doing is a religion of its own. And all dissenters, all non-believers will be shunned and punished by this holier-than-thou art, moral supremacist leaders that are in charge of big tech. So when you look at that, they hate religious right or religious people. It's kind of scary that they don't even self-recognize what they are, which is essentially a religious cult on the left. And it's dangerous because only one of these sides, right? You could take the religious extreme, but only one of these sides is endorsing violence, endorsing suppression of all information.
They're endorsing segregation at this point.
Absolutely.
They're literally, we have a generation of new leftists endorsing segregation.
So I have a lot of middle of the road, friends, and they're just like, I don't like politics, right? And here's the thing. They'll say, I don't like the extremes on both sides, right? And I get it. They're trying to be uniting. They're trying to say, I want to, hear this information you have to say, but I don't want to commit to it. Or, I don't want to take a stand yet because I'm so overwhelmed with information. I empathize with that. But the reality is there's not two extremes, okay? There are extremists on the right, that none of us pay attention to. They don't have large platforms. I don't even know one. I've never even met one. So I'm sure they're out there somewhere, but the representing body of the right is not intolerant. We strongly advocate for free speech, for things that we don't like. And the left is over here advocating and endorsing violence and wanting essentially to eradicate our voice, not just from the conversation, but even from the public domain. They're calling for our bank accounts to be seized, our jobs, our livelihoods, our ability to provide for our families. So how can you really say something so neutral? How can you say, oh, it's just there are these extreme? Show me the extreme on the right. Show me where people on the right
and not just one case, a systemic extreme
are burning businesses down of people on the left, calling for them to be their children
be
to
fired.
Outside their windows of their children's homes, screaming at them. Show me where main influencers like us, on the right, are saying, "Hey, let's go down and bring our guns and harass people, endorse violence." It's not happening. It's not happening at all. So these neutral comments, I know that they come from a nice place, but we just don't have the luxury of that anymore. And Martin Luther King said it best. You're being complicit. You're silence. You're being part of the oppressor, part of the problem by just not. And I'm not saying you have to say, "Oh, I'm conservative" or "I'm this," but stand for something. At least stand for a value of some sort.
Stand against the violence.
Yeah,
on the
stand
left,
against
at the very least.
the violence.
That was what's shocking to me is during these hearings is Bill Barr said, just why are we not hearing any of our colleagues? This is one of our two major parties in America. None of you guys are saying anything about this violence. You're talking about hundreds of officers hurt, thousands at this point. You're talking about dead officers. You're talking about riots and damage in the billions of dollars all over America. And we can't even get any sort of... So there was a question from Casey Robin, I believe it was. Let me make sure. I think it was Casey Robin. You asked for my position on Elon Musk. I assume that was me, since he just amplified me. Elon I like him. I do. I think he's eccentric, definitely. There's going to be things I disagree with him on, but he thinks outside the box, which is what I like about him. He's looking for new solutions to old problems. And there's not a lot of people doing that. A lot of people are trying the same old solutions on the same old problems and getting the same old result. He's at least trying new solutions for these old problems. And I appreciate that because I do think that's something that more of us in the world need to be doing in our thought process, is thinking outside the box for new solutions to old problems that are still plaguing our society. That's how we're going to advance. That's how we're going to get better, is by being innovative. And unfortunately, with the bloat of government, you've seen very little innovation. It's been all about sort of these tried and true practices, which get us nowhere, and they continue the same problem. So they're really not tried and true. They're just convenient. And so that's what I appreciate about him. And I think he's eccentric in some good ways. In some ways, you definitely get a sort of what's the right way to describe it? Like uneasiness. I assume some people get some uneasiness about it. As a Tesla stockholder and Tesla owner, I like him. So that's.
Well, I like him too as an innovator, an artist, and I don't know him as a person, so I wouldn't make a judgment. But I do think there's something to be said for, if you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for anything. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So I really like anybody that I keep close to me. I like to know who they are and what they stand for, even if I don't agree with it. I just want to know that who you say you are is who you are, is how you live. And when I see people that just don't want to, don't want to say what their values are, beliefs are, like, I don't know, it makes me uneasy. Just that, to earn my trust, to really endorse somebody, I have to know that they are transparent. There is a level of transparency about things and not just being outspoken about things that are self-serving. So that's important to me.
This is a good question. What do you think about extending the $600 unemployment benefits and additional stimulus payments? Okay, so we do need to have payments. I think the $600 a week is something that, you have to look at what the state is giving as well. And you have to look at what the typical wage is. I think this is why going state by state is so important, because it's different things in different states. The cost of living in California is different than Alabama. And so you do have to look at, if you want to really be intentional with this and you want to do things that are from a sense of, just being practical about everybody sort of having sort of the same thing, same ability to pay their bills. You have to make sure you're not incentivizing people to not work. Because there are people out there where if you're giving them more than what they would be making at work, they're obviously not going to go back to work. I mean, they'd be dumb to do so. Hey, would you not agree? They would be dumb to do so. If they're making more on unemployment than going to work, most of those people are not going to go back to work. That's just, it's fairly simple. So I think you do have to make sure you're taking care of people right now, because this has been forced by the government. I have to remind everybody that. So my normal views on this sort of thing are a little different because this is government force, okay? So we do have to take care of people, make sure they're not kicked out of their homes, make sure kids are safe, all that, okay? But we do need to be careful that we're not building a dependency issue.
Yeah, I have to hop off, but
I think I will too. I don't see any other questions.
There's actually some good ones, but I have.
There was?
Yeah, you want.
Okay, I'll do these last couple questions. There were. So everybody say bye, Landon. So
I do want to say one thing. It's important to be mindful that there are people that want to see America go down a myriad of ways. And they're kind of like throwing a bunch of stuff at the board and seeing what sticks. It's just like I said before, it's like the blitzkrieg, just throwing stuff and seeing what works. And the goal is, if there's more stuff being thrown at everyone, that it'll just be that much easier to take it all down. And this is not a conspiracy theory. This is, you read the, go to BLM website and look at, the ideals that they're supporting about deconstructing America, essentially tearing down America the way it's built, and it no longer being America. And so when we know that in the back of our minds, when we see stuff like the cashless society, just all of those little things. It puts things in a different perspective because you realize, okay, maybe it's not just about people asking for, oh, I don't feel safe going to work. Maybe it's really about people knowing that if enough people do that, that the government will be forced to, supplement all of this income, and it will destabilize our entire economy to have half of us working and half of us getting benefits. Mm-hmm. It will not work. Businesses will not work. Small businesses will be virtually non-existent. So if you understand, economics on a deeper level, you know what I'm talking about. It will not work. So they know this. The people that orchestrate all of this know this. So I'm not saying there's not some people that shouldn't go to work right now. I'm not saying that. But the amount of people calling for these stimulus packages for everyone,
just continue forever,
just based on fear and not based on science. That you have to wonder there's other agendas going on. So, yeah.
So,
all right. Bye, guys. Have a great weekend.
I'll keep answering questions. Somebody asked, Real Patriot Media said, what is your take on medical freedom? If you haven't seen, we did an episode with Rand Paul. Here, let me scoot over a little bit so you guys can see better. So we did an episode with Rand Paul, specifically targeting sort of medical freedom, and definitely a big believer in the need for us to respect medical freedom. I don't think individual views matter in terms of like lawmakers. You can be pro-vaccine and still be for medical freedom. And I think not enough people are living that up the way that they should, and that would be my take is I'm pro-safety. I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm pro-safety. I think that we need to have a safer process for all of them in terms of how they're approved and what safety studies are done, and making sure that they're double blind and that they're using a saline placebo and everything. So those things I think are important. But I don't believe in government force in any of these respects in terms of whether it's vaccines or a drug or whatever it is. I don't think that there should be a right to inject people against their will. So next question, somebody asked, let's see here. Janet Crawford said liberals and conservatives don't speak the same language. Huge issue. So it is a huge issue, but I think that's also why people like Landon and I are a threat to them, because I do speak their language, and they use language as a barrier to pretend that there's an intelligence gap. They use their language as a way of pretending that, oh, well, these people who are just less educated would not be able to understand, my superior ability to, piece apart this situation or piece apart systemic racism or whatever it is. And it's demeaning and it's condescending in every way possible. But I think that's why people like us are a threat to them, because I do speak their language, I understand it, and I can speak it back to them. And I can speak it back to them effectively in a way that discredits their arguments, and there's nothing really left for them to stand on. And I think there's sort of two things here. Number one, you can refuse their language by saying, I refuse to play into the linguistic manipulation when you do it. But you can also use it when necessary as a tactic to be able to disarm them and disarm their arguments. And I think that's important as well. So let's see here. Any explanation for coin shortage? Thoughts on a cashless society? I just think it's weird. I think it's weird seeing all these signs. I try not to go too deep into things that I don't know about. And I'm really, I understand that the Treasury is saying that there's a shortage of coins. I don't really understand that. I know that they're constantly pumping them into circulation, and there's apparently a problem with doing that right now. But we had tens of millions of coins already in circulation, so it doesn't make sense to me. That is just odd to me. I don't know what to say. It's weird. I have a lot of misgivings about a cashless society. I think that you it's been a staple for so long. I guess you can make arguments about germs or whatever. I think we're hedging into dangerous territory when you change things so rapidly. So honestly, I need to think about that one more. I really need to put some deep thought into it. So it's a good question because I can't give you a perfect answer. I tried to read through everything. And we'll get you guys next time. Thank you, Christina Wong, by the way, for saying that we're both great. And I do have to say, the people who left when Landon left, you were very rude. I cannot believe you guys were just here for her. You guys don't even like me. All right, guys. No other questions. See you guys.